What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. I am so excited to bring you my full review of the Empedc Relative. Let's get into it. What we'll be doing today is going through the knife specs. We'll do some size comparisons for reference, and then I'll jump into my thoughts and impressions of this knife. Let's go ahead and get into the specs. So the Relative has a 3.4 inch 20 CV blade. They did do a second pre-order, so it could come in LMAX as well. 4.3 inch titanium handles. Overall length coming in at 7.8 inches. Claimed weight 4.3 ounces. Let's grab the scale and verify that real quick. Yep, so 4.3 exactly as advertised. I'm going to move the scale out of the way, if it'll cut off. And then we'll go ahead and jump into some size comparisons for this knife. First up, we're going to bring out the Empedc AD 20.5, which is going to be just a little bit smaller. And then we'll bring out the Spyderco Shaman, which is going to be bigger overall. So this is more in that medium range, in my opinion. Well, actually a little bit to the medium to the large, because I do consider the Empedc AD 20.5 to be more of a medium EDC. All right, let's move the Empedc out of the way and bring out the Benchmade bug out. And we'll move the Shaman and bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue. And as you can see, this is a little bit longer than the bug out and just a little bit shorter than the Shaman. So that medium large size, in between medium and large in my opinion. Moving the bug out of the way, we're going to bring in the Elementum 2 button lock for the sub 3 inch category for reference. And then we're going to bring out the Civivi Praxis, which is another large sized budget knife. So as you can see, medium to large, as I've been stating the entire time, we're going to go ahead and use the large knives for profile comparison to give you an idea just how thick or thin the knife is. So you can see probably about even with the Praxis. We'll go ahead and bring out the Shaman, and you can see about even with the Shaman. And then we'll bring out the SIG, which is going to be thicker at the top of the knife, and then because it has that V shape to it, going to be thinner at the base. So unique comparison there. Now that we've got those out of the way, let's jump into my thoughts and impressions. We're going to kick it off with the ergos on this knife. This knife has much more thickness to it, in my opinion, than the Nimble X. So you have your contoured scales here. You have good thickness because it does ramp up a little bit there. So that makes it that much more comfortable for the larger sized hands, in my opinion, over top of the Nimble X. Really comfortable neutral ergos here. I mean, Empedc just nailed it with this knife for Empedc. All the chamfering and milling along the edges here are really, really nice, keeping the knife very comfortable in hand. Then you have the pass-through lanyard spot that goes through the back spacer and is under or above the titanium pocket clip. The pocket clip ramps really nice, so it goes in without getting caught up and it comes out without getting caught up. And you have right up to there, so about that much of the knife sticks out, which is not bad for a milled titanium pocket clip, in my opinion. Access to, well, first lockup coming in at about 30%, maybe 40. Access to the lock bar is really good because they knocked it down here and they chamfered here, and because it is a little bit thicker than the Nimble X, I'm able to get in there very easily. You have phosphor bronze washers in the pivot. I did already throw the skiffs in here as soon as I got the knife, so it would break in with the skiffs instead of the factory bearings. But I did flip it a few times with the factory bearings and it came very smooth from the factory. And this one here is a very small shake shut, and I'm sure as it continues to break in, it's going to require less and less of a shake. Let's talk about the blade shape. You have a Bowie, or if you went in on the LMAX or the more recent drop, you could have opted for the drop point. The Bowie has a compound grind, so you have a really thin hollow grind right through here, and then a flat grind out on the tip. It is a very unique Tonto style blade because the tip is way back here, so you can see they kept the flat all the way back to the drop where it is flat through the blade. So that's something to keep in mind as you sharpen. So when you're sharpening here, you're going to want to change your angle a little bit, and you're going to want to come in on that flat grind by itself and then do the hollow grind separate. Or if you don't mind it being a Japanese style tanto, you can just sharpen all the way through, and eventually that tip will go away because it is a very small amount that is coming back that is on the flat. And I'm not even sure if I can get that to show up on camera. There you go. Hopefully you're seeing the reflection, how far that comes back. So very unique blade shape. Means of deployment, you have the thumb hole, so you can thumb flick fairly easily, catches the finger nicely. You can reverse flick from the opening hole, or you can come down and use the fuller if you like to kick it from the side like that. Works really well. And you have the front flipper, so that works well. The jimping is fairly aggressive, even though it is the thicker style jimping, so that works very nicely. And you can use the side finger trick with the detent the way that it's tuned on the knife right now. It came a little stiff, so when I took it apart to install the skiffs, I just ever so lightly went back the other way, and it's still nice and snappy there, has a good break to it, and you still are able to a little bit more easily, in my opinion, use that front flipper. Now, unlike the Nimble X, you don't have the flipper tab, but in my opinion, I think it looks better with the profile of the knife to have that rounded out there. It looks really, really good. Cutting performance from the factory on this edge with this hollow grind is super slicey. I mean, it cut through, went through the paper, so no blemishes in the edge. That's really all the paper cut's telling you, is just what is that factory edge feeling like as it goes through. Is it slicing or is it tearing? And it was definitely slicing. And I broke down a couple of Amazon boxes, not a ton of cardboard, but obviously the hollow grind and the thinness of this knife here went through that with no issues whatsoever. And Empedc seems to do a pretty good job on their heat treat. So the M390 on this one, I'm not too worried about. I think it's marked on the blade somewhere. Is that it there? If I can get the reflection. Lord have mercy. And I think it might be upside down. Yeah, it is. It's upside down. Oh no, this is 20 CV. Same thing though. 20 CV. I don't know why I was thinking M390. That's the Nimble X. I apologize. But CMP 20 CV has the same characteristics of M390. It's just this is made by Crucible and M390 is made by Bowler. So there are your differences there. And I know I showed the thickness on here, but again, that thickness on this along with this milling makes this super comfortable. Nice grip to it because of the texturing without it being overly aggressive. So you have good texturing going through the knife scales, and you have nice finishes like the polished titanium pivot collar on the front and on the back. Most knives do one or the other. I'm not really sure why they're doing that. I'd like to just see pivot collars on both sides, and it has a satisfying sound. Check these sounds out. So hopefully those sounds are coming through. Just to me, this is, I like this design cue better than I liked the Nimble X. So that is personal preference. So for me personally, I think this knife is better looking than the Nimble X. So much so that someone asked me if I'd be willing to let the Nimble X go, and I did, because I really like this that much. Now, I had the reverse tucks on the Nimble X, so I went ahead because I really liked this knife, and I do like the Bowie Tanto. It has good height for utility and draw cuts, so you pinch up here and you can get into your packages with the tip, or if you need to, you can use the tip down here, and it actually is pretty effective at cutting labels. I think if I go to sharpen this later, I probably am just going to sharpen straight through, let it have that Japanese Tanto, or yeah, that Japanese Tanto style, where it's just, you have the compound grind going on, but it's a smooth transition. You don't have that acute point down at the bottom. But what I was saying is I went and picked up the LMAX because I really like this knife that much. It's so comfortable in hand, so comfortable in hand. I mean, no matter which hand I'm using it in, very comfortable, and I can rest the thumb behind the lock bar and easily reverse flick it, which means no issues with the thumb flick and no issues with the top flipper. Just again, a little bit heavy on that detent. So the one that I've been saying that I picked up since I had the reverse Tonto, this is like my third time starting to say that, I picked up the Tux with the black wash handle, and I got the drop point L-Max with the satin finish this go round. So I will have two relatives, but I feel like because I like the handle and the ergo so much on this, and now have two different blade shapes and two different color cues, I'm okay with having two of them, but I think that should say something as to how much I like this knife. Now, having said that, this is, because it is manufactured by Empedc, which you're getting a little bit more for your money from that manufacturer, especially when it comes to the heat treat and the build quality and the finishes. $380. That is a lot of money when you think about what you're spending on the knife. So I'm going to throw a couple alternative recommendations down. First, one of the alternative recommendations I'm going to make for a US manufacturer is going to be the Spyderco Shaman, and you'll have enough left over after you spend under $300 to get yourself a set of titanium scales, so you'll have a really nice finish, and you can pick up a CME made by OCD for EDC, which makes this very easy to use right or left-handed. And while it is not on bearings, you can tune these to be really smooth, have no play in the pivot, and fall shut action, or smooth. I would say smooth shut action. It's not going to fall shut. So that's the difference with the phosphor bronze washers. But the advantage to that is if you have a work environment or an environment where you're going to be getting your knife very dirty at, you are going to be able to use those and have less debris get into the pivot to mess you up. Now, you could, for around $200, get yourself one of the Kungwu products. You will get a properly heat treated blade, whether you're getting M390 or L-Max. You will get titanium handles, but you will get steel hardware versus the titanium hardware that is coming on the Nimble X. Oh goodness, a flashback there. The Relative. But I will say the pocket clip, I like the milled pocket clip better. So it depends on which one of the Kungwus you get. But the Kungwu is at least going to give you a couple means of deployments if you're getting the Tau. And you are getting a really good heat treat for around $200, so you could save a little bit of money, and it has really good ergo, so I'm very comfortable making that recommendation. And if you wanted something a little bit bigger, you can sometimes on the secondary market find a Sabenza or an Nkosi for around $400 or $425 or so. So not too much more if you wanted another US recommendation. I know I kind of jumped from US to Chinese and back, but I just wanted to throw those out there. Another one too, just in case you like that medium size, you could go with the Taiwan made Demco 80 20.5, and you're getting that for a little bit less still. I think they're like $350 versus the $380 for the Relative. And you're getting a little bit thicker geometry from the, is it the 3V and the S35? I think both are available in titanium, or is it just the S35 that's available in Grivory and carbon fiber, but the titanium was the 3V? I can't really remember, but this is my 3V variant. I did pay for the base model version with the Grivory, and then I bought original goat scales for, I think, another 200, maybe 180, something like that. And then for 60, I sent it out to BGM to get the hollow grind on here to make it very, very thin. So I was able to start at the $150 price point, or whatever the price point was when they first came out with the 3V. And then I went eventually and picked up, the titanium scales that I wanted from original goat. I anodized it the way that I wanted to. So I just kind of built it on my own. So if you needed to do that, to break it up, that's another way you could do that. But ultimately, I have to make this a recommendable knife because I liked it so much that I picked up another one. I really am enjoying this. The build quality is fantastic. Heat treat on it is good. Jimping on the back, I forgot to mention that. When you want to choke up to do work on the edge is good. It comes with a hollow grind, so unlike the 3V Demco 80 20.5 that I mentioned that I had to send out to get the hollow grind, this came with it. It has multiple means of deployment that are very nice to use. Really good access to the lock bar. It uses the 5mm 3/16, I think it is, skiff bearings, so very easy to upgrade to that. And if you wanted to get the raw, you could anodize. You could anodize the pivot and the hardware if you just want to accent it, similar to what I did with my Vero Impulse. I just kind of did the hardware. I would probably say the pivot collar, but not the pivot. That would probably look a little bit cleaner on this model, in my opinion. And I just did everything but the pocket clip on that, just to give it a tiny pop of color without it being the entire thing. So anyway, I really like this knife. I hope this review helped you. I will be doing the disassembly so I can show you what it looks like on the internal, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Shout out to everyone out there that is liking the videos, watching, and commenting. I appreciate all the support from each and every one of you. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and until next time, peace.